In the previous video, we studied the beginnings of the Harappan civilization, their subsistence strategies, and Mohenjo-daro as a planned urban center. In this video, we will continue our discussions on the Harappan civilization by understanding how social differences were identified, how craft production was organized, how raw materials were procured, and the role of seals, scripts, and weights in trade and communication. Let's study about tracking social differences. Before proceeding to the topic, let's understand what is the meaning of social differences. Social differences refers to economic and social inequality within a society. Archaeologists try to identify these differences through material remains. So when I say material remains, let's talk about the burials. Use of burials to identify social differences. Burials are studied to understand status differences. Comparison is made with Egypt pyramid, which were royal burials. What were the nature of Harappan burials? The dead were generally laid in pits. Burial pits were sometimes lined with bricks or say not lined with bricks. Differences in burial pits may suggest social differences. Archaeologists are not certain about this interpretation. What did they find in the burials? Some graves contain pottery, ornaments, and what does this indicate? It indicates a belief in afterlife. Jewelry in burials. They found in men's graves and as well as in the women's graves the jewelry. What did they find? Examples from Harappan cemetery, we understood that they had shell rings, jasper bead, micro bead. Copper mirrors found in some graves. Precious items were rarely buried. This is what we study under the heading use of metal objects. So we just conclude by saying Harappans did not bury large quantities of wealth with the dead. Let's move on to 4.2, looking for luxuries, under which we are going to study about classification of artifacts. Artifacts are classified into utilitarian objects and luxury objects. When I say utilitarian objects, that means the objects of daily use, and they are made of ordinary materials and they are found across all settlements. For example, pottery, quains. Quains is nothing but say that it is a hand operated stone mill used in ancient times to grind grain into flour. That is what we call it as quain. Needles, flesh rubbers meaning tool used by early humans to rub and soften animal skins. They were usually made of stone, bone, or hard wood. Okay, what is the purpose of this flesh rubbers? To remove fat and flesh sticking to the skin. The next one that we are going to talk about is the luxury objects. It is rare in number. It was rare in number, made from costly or non-local materials, produced using complex technology. Then we are going to study about faience. Faience as a luxury material. What is actually faience? A man-made glazed material used in ancient times to make beads, bangles, and small objects. They are made from ground sand or silica, and then they mixed with color and gum. It is difficult to manufacture, so it was considered very precious. Concentrated in large urban centers, that is, the distribution of these luxury objects were concentrated in large urban centers, found mainly in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and they were rare or absent in small settlements like Kalibangan. Now, gold as a luxury, gold was a rare and valuable gold jewelry found only in hoards. Hoards It's nothing but collection of valuable objects that were buried or hidden together. So, what do we conclude about this? Burials and artifacts help archaeologists identify social differences, understand economic inequality, study urban rural variation. Let's move on to finding out about craft production. First, let us understand the meaning of craft production. Craft production refers to the manufacture of goods by skilled artisans. In Harappan civilization, craft played a major role in urban economy. Okay, then in that case, what is that craft center is very famous here? Chanhu Daro. Where is it located? It was a small settlement, much smaller than Mohenjo-daro. Say that Chanudaro was a small settlement less than 7 hectares, wherein Mohenjo-daro was about 125 hectares. So what were they specialized in? They were specialized almost exclusively devoted to craft production. They indicate specialized industrial activity. Oh, what did the craft practiced here at Chanhudaro? Bead making, shell making, metal working, seal making, and also weight making. What were the materials used for bead making? Mostly stones, all precious stones. First one is that carnelian stone. It is a red colored stone. It's a semi precious stone used in ancient times to make beads and ornaments. Then comes jasper, crystal, quartz, steatite. These were the stones that were made for using of bead making. What were the metals used here? Copper, bronze, gold. What were the other materials used here? Shell, faience, terracotta. Then we had variety of beads, shapes, disc-shaped, cylindrical, spherical, barrel-shaped, segmented. What were the design that they used here? Incising, painting, etching designs. What were the techniques of bead making? Now, when you talk about steatite beads, they were a soft stone. Powdered steatite was molded into beads, allowed production of varied shapes. Techniques of making micro beads, it's still a mystery. What about carnelian beads? They were raw, yellowish carnelian was fired to get red color. Nodules chipped into rough shapes, finely flaked into final form. Grinding, polishing, and drilling completed the process. Specialized drill found at Chahandaro, Lothal, Dolavera. In that case, where are these shell working centers? Nageshwar and Balakot. They were located near the coast, specialized in shell objects. These shell objects were made of bangles, ladles. What is this ladles? Long handled utensils used to scoop or pour or serve liquids. Then you have inlay work. Where did they distributed all these finished products? Beads and shell objects transported to Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. Then it also shows inter-settlement trade. So this is all about the five, starting with five, the unit 5, finding out about craft production. Identifying centers of production. What were the indicators used by archaeologists? Availability of raw materials, presence of tools, unfinished products, rejects and waste materials. These were the important things that were used as an indicators by archaeologists to find the identifying centers of production. The next one we go to importance of waste. So what do you know about here? The waste is the best indicator of craft production. Cutting stones or shell produce waste pieces. Small waste fragments found at work areas. Craft production in large cities. Evidence of craft activity found in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. Suggest both specialized center, urban craft workshops. Now let us move on to strategies for procuring materials, that is Unit 6. The meaning of procuring material, obtaining raw material for craft production. That is what is the meaning of procuring of raw materials. That means getting or sourcing. Need for raw materials. Harappans used varied raw materials for craft. Some materials like clay were locally available. Materials like stone, timber, and metal had to be obtained from outside. Mode of transportation, they used land routes, river routes, and coastal routes. What about in land routes? Terracotta toy models of bullock carts found that indicates carts were used for transporting goods and moving people. River routes, rivers like the Indus and its tributaries were used. Coastal routes, likely used for long distance movement, such as maritime trade. Materials from the subcontinent and beyond. Specialized resource based settlements, shell producing centers. Now, let us see what are the shell producing centers or what were the shell producing centers. Nageshwar and Balkot, established near shell sources, shells used to make bangles, ladles, inlay. Also, we will see what are the distant settlement for rare materials. Shortugai, that is in Afghanistan. This was located near lapis lazuli sources. When I say lapis lazuli, that is a valuable blue semi-precious stones. Shows long distance procurement. The next one, Lothal. Lothal, that was located near sources of carnelian, steatite metals. This carnelian, it's from Gujarat. Steatite, it's from South Rajasthan and also from North Gujarat, and metals from Rajasthan. Now, expedition and contact with local communities. Use of expeditions. Expeditions, it is an organized journey. Moving on to 6.2, expeditions and contact with local communities. First, let us understand what is the meaning of expeditions. Expeditions, it's an organized journey. So, how did they use this? The Harappans sent expeditions. Purpose was to obtain copper, gold, and what were the regions that they visited? They visited K3 region, that is in Rajasthan, for the purpose of copper. Then to South India, that is for gold. And what were the evidence of contact? Harappans artifacts like steatite, microbeads found in these regions indicates interactions and exchange. Then we need to talk about Ganeshwar, Jodhpura culture that was located in the K3 region again, and it is known for distinctive non-Harappan pottery, large quantity of copper objects. Then moving on to supply of copper. Inhabitants may have supplied copper to Harappans, suggest inter-regional trade network. So how do we conclude this? Harappans used multiple strategies to procure materials, show advanced planning and organized economy. Unit 7, Seals, Script and Weights. What was the purpose of seals? Seals and sealings were used to help in long distance communications, that is, exchange of goods between faraway places. They were mainly used in trade and transport. The method of sealing goods were packed in a bag. The mouth of the bag was tied with a rope. Wet clay was placed on the knot. One or more seals were pressed on the clay, leaving an impression. The importance of sealing: if the seal was intact, that is, not broken, it showed the bag was not tampered. The sealing also showed the identity of the sender, that is, person who sent the goods. Enigmatic script. What do you mean by enigmatic? It's a mysterious, difficult to understand. So, nature of Harappan script. Harappan seals usually had a line of writing. The writing probably mentioned the name and title of the owner. They also use motif. That is, seals also had motif. Motif means symbols, usually animals. These motifs may have conveyed meaning to people who could not read. What were the length and type of scripts? Most inscriptions were short. The longest inscriptions are about 26 signs. The script is still undeciphered. Undeciphered, not yet understood. It was not alphabetical, that is, not based on vowels and consonants. This is because it had 375 to 400 signs, which is too many for an alphabet. They also had a writing, that is, direction of writing. The script was written from right to left. Some seals show wider spacing on the right and cramping on the left, showing how it was engraved. What were the objects that they used with writing? Writing is found on seals, copper tools, rims of jars, copper and terracotta tablets, jewelry, bone rods, and ancient signboard. So we understand that writing may also existed on perishable materials. This suggests that literacy may have been widespread. We'll finish the unit 7 by closure of weights. The system of weights. Trade exchanges were regulated by a precise system of weights. When I say precise system, that means accurate and exact. What were the materials and shape were used? Weights were usually made of cherret, that is a hard stone. They were generally cubical, that is cube shaped again. They had no markings. And the weight system, lower denomination followed the binary system, that is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Higher denomination followed the decimal system, that is 160, 200, 320, 640, likewise. Use of weight here. Smaller weight were used to weigh jewelry and beads. Metal scale pans, that is plates used in weighing, have also been found here. So we are coming to the end of 7.3, and let's see the questions related to 8-mark questions, that is related to the unit from 1 to 7. These are the few board-based questions related to the unit from 1 to 7. You can take a screenshot, and that is the end of the video too.